Hey guys, we're the Sports Addicts podcast, and we're back with a video to mention our snubs in the NFL Top 100 list. And as you guys obviously know, the NFL releases a list of its top 100 players every single year, voted by the players. And every year there's a couple of snubs who are players that should have made it but didn't get voted in by the players. And this year there seems to be way more than usual, and the list has gotten a lot of controversy. So we're going to reveal our picks for the snubs this year. So, Sai, what are you three snubs?
The first player I want to mention is a big snub in my opinion is Anthony Harris. So Anthony Harris last season, and this list is basically based off of the 2019 season. So I have Anthony Harris as one of my snubs because last season, in my opinion, he was the best safety in the NFL. He had 6 interceptions according to PFF, and he was the highest rated safety. And he in 17 total targets, he allowed only 11 receptions. And I feel like him, along with his teammate Harrison Smith, formed the best safety duo in the NFL, and I feel like him being left off this list is pretty egregious in my opinion. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, definitely. He didn't allow a touchdown at all last year, and him and Harrison Smith, they formed the best safety duo in the league. Harrison Smith, he can play the box. He's a versatile run defender, and Anthony Harris takes up the responsibilities in the coverage. And what makes this fact better is that the Vikings cornerbacks really struggled last year. Xavier Rhodes had a career worst year, and if you look at their other cornerbacks, Trey Waynes and other people like that, they're really average cornerbacks to above average at best. So, and their defense wasn't that bad, and that's really a testament to how good their safeties were in masking up the holes and deficiency left by the cornerbacks. So, I totally agree with your mention of Anthony
Yeah,
Harris
the
as a
two
snub.
safeties had to make up for like the deficiencies for the cornerbacks. You're definitely right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So my second player, moving on to the second snub on the list, I have Rodney Hudson, center for the Las Vegas Raiders. So Rodney Hudson, for this decade, in my opinion, he's the best pass blocking center, and I feel like it's pretty egregious to leave him off this list because they put in people like Larry Fitzgerald and they only put in one center on this list, Jason Kelsey. In my opinion, Jason Kelsey is the best center in football, and I feel like he's way too low on this list. I feel like centers need to be valued more in the NFL, and this list pretty much went crazy on receivers. And I think Rodney Hudson is definitely worthy of this list. For the past 6 years, he's been the highest graded pass blocker in the NFL at the center position. And I feel like that allows him to deserve the position of the NFL top 100. And he's been a rock for the Raiders team. And I feel like Rodney Hudson at center leads that entire offensive line. He makes everyone better. Colton Miller, Richie Incognito, Gabe Jackson, and Trent Brown along that offensive line to make it one of the best pass blocking offensive lines in the NFL. And to not and his run blocking itself is not even that bad in my opinion. His run blocking is definitely not as good as his pass blocking, but he's still above average in that category. And I feel like Rodney Hudson being left off this list is pretty egregious.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree, and I feel one reason that he was left off the list is that the Raiders weren't a marquee team. I feel like this list is so based off of the marquee players. Like the Cowboys have so many players on the list, the Saints get so many players on the list, so on and so forth. And really, the guys that are underrated, such as Hudson, who's been a top one to top two center throughout his entire career, they often get overlooked. So you're definitely right in saying that Hudson should have made the top 100 list. He's the reason that Raiders' offensive line was actually really good in pass protection.
Yeah, and it improved from the year before. He's been a rock. He hasn't missed any games in like the last 6 years. I think he's missed 2 games over the last 6 years, and one of them came this year with a sprained ankle. He plays through injury. He's pretty much been a rock at center for the Raiders for the last like 5 years. Yeah. So moving on to the third player as a snub, I think is the obvious, in my opinion, the biggest snub I have is Arik Armstead. So Arik Armstead, since this list is based on only 2019, I feel like Arik Armstead has to be a snub on this list because Arik Armstead last year he had his breakout year with Nick Bosa joining the team and obviously DeForest Buckner, who's now on the Colts, who was also on that team, and I feel like he outplayed his own teammate. Last year, DeForest Buckner, and I feel like Arik Armstead was one of the best run defenders in the NFL, along with him picking up plenty of sacks as well. And Arik Armstead last season, he was also rated really high by PFF. So I think him being left off this list is also pretty egregious.
Oh yeah, you're right. And another thing to remember about Arik, he's versatile. He can play defensive end and he can play the 3 techniques. So that really made it easy for the Niners to. That really was one of the reasons why the Niners' defensive line rotation was so deep. Is that they had a plethora of edge rushers and they had so much versatility on that defense. And as you said,
Yeah,
Arik Armstead was a key reason why that Niners defensive line was so dominant.
Exactly. He was one of the biggest reasons, and in my opinion, he even though he didn't force too many fumbles, he forced two and he recovered one. He still his size at 6'7" also like really bothers quarterback, especially when he's lined up at three technique. When he comes in and puts pressure from the inside, along with Nick Bosa and DeForest Buckner also on the inside, and D Ford and Nick Bosa on the outside, I feel like that Niner defensive line obviously was the best in football last year. It can be the best for years to come.
Yeah, definitely. All three of your picks were definitely worthy of the top 100 selection. So moving on to my list, the first guy I think was snubbed is I think the most obvious one, Carson Wentz. I really don't know what these players were thinking in their voting. They really put Josh Allen, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Dak Prescott all over Carson Wentz. Like, I mean, Carson Wentz took this Philadelphia Eagles team with Zach Ertz and a bunch of practice squad wide receivers to the first round of the playoffs until he got knocked out of the game because of a cheap shot of Jadeveon Clowney. I mean, this guy put the team on his back. In the second half, when the Eagles were riddled by injuries, he still managed to they overcame many deficits. Right, even though they played bad teams such as the Giants and so on, he put the team on his back and he led them so many game-winning drives. And if you really compared him to other quarterbacks such as Josh Allen, Garoppolo, and Prescott, Prescott didn't make the playoffs. Allen was carried by his defense in any metric. Wentz had better stats than Allen all around, and Jimmy Garoppolo was carried by his defense. So I really think that Wentz should have been a no-brainer for this list, and instead he ends up getting left out.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Carson Wentz has to be the most the player that's definitely the most obvious. And in my opinion, I don't know how a player goes from number 3 in 2018 in the NFL Top 100 to 96 last year, even though he did have a kind of a down year last year. This year he was better than his year when he was number 3, even though his
And
team
not to
didn't do as
mention,
well.
he only threw
His
7
team still won.
interceptions. He had a 27 touchdown to
Exactly.
7 exact. That's mind-boggling. That's absurd. The Eagles' record was 9-7, but they still won the NFC East. He led them to the division title, so he definitely should have made that list.
Yeah, if you look at his 2017 season, he threw for 33 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. The numbers look better, but if you look at his yards, he was only 3,300. He had way better weapons. This year, he had worse weapons. His defense, his secondary is pretty much one of the worst in football, and I feel like Carson Wentz definitely deserved to make this list.
Exactly. Carson Wentz, in my opinion, was the biggest snub of this list. And moving on to the next one, I decided to go pick between two receivers, either Kenny Golladay or Cortland Sutton. And I'm going to go with Kenny Golladay, one, because I believe he's more underrated than Cortland Sutton. And his stats this year was 1,190 yards and 11 touchdowns. 11 touchdowns is way better than guys such as Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Larry Fitzgerald. I can confidently say that Golladay was better than all three of those guys. He was Matthew Stafford could just throw it up to Golladay, and he was such a dependable guy. And guys like David Blough and all those Lions backup quarterbacks, he continued to produce even with those guys on the team. And I believe he should have been at least in the 70s, above DK Metcalf, above Larry Fitzgerald, above Tyler Lockett. I believe he's the most underrated receiver in the NFL, and his stats definitely back up the case that he's one of the bigger snubs in this year's list.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that because the difference between Cortland Sutton, who did make this list, and Kenny Golladay is that Kenny Golladay is more proven. Cortland Sutton this year was his breakout year, and I understand that he, even though this was his breakout year, I'm okay with him not making it, even though he is definitely considered a snub. For Kenny Golladay, it's been 2 straight years of 1,000 yards. He's been Mr. Reliable for Matthew Stafford whenever has a run game, and he always doesn't have many options at tight end or anything like that. Like this year, T.J. Hawkinson was obviously very disappointing, and Marvin Jones was a little injury riddled. So I think Kenny Golladay really carried that Lions offense. And another thing to add was obviously David Blau and like all the backup quarterbacks for the Detroit Lions. He had to play with them, so that's another big thing about Kenny Golladay that can be overlooked at times.
Yeah, as you said, the reason I chose Golladay over Sutton is that Golladay has 2 years of great production. Actually, 3. His rookie season was pretty good for a rookie compared to Cortland Sutton's one breakout year. So I decided to give Golladay the nod. And as you said, his case becomes so elevated when you consider the fact that he played with a bunch of practice squad QBs and still was able to put up those huge numbers.
Yeah, so like you said before, the teams that obviously are like picking at the top of the draft don't really get that much recognition. Besides like the Arizona Cardinals, I don't think any really bad team got that much recognition this year in the NFL Top 100.
Yeah, how marquee a team is definitely very important to whether they make this list or not. So moving on to my third and final snub, Justin Simmons. Simmons was a top 5 safety this year. He had a 91.0 PFF grade. He was solid as both a run defender and pass defender. And as a safety, he allowed only a pass rating of 32.1, and that number is absurd. That's absolutely incredible. It was second in the league, only to Earl Thomas. And he and Kareem Jackson, who rotated in at safety for some time, they form one of the better safety duos in the league. And I believe compared to guys that made it, such as Logan Ryan and other cornerbacks who didn't produce as much as Justin Simmons, Simmons should have been a lock for the top 100. So what do you say about that?
Yeah, so Justin Simmons definitely is another big snub from this list. Like I said about Anthony Harris, he's one of the best safeties in the NFL this year, and he pretty much just like Anthony Harris, not to the extent of him, but I think he also carried that Broncos secondary. He did have some help with Kareem Jackson, but I think Chris Harris was definitely underwhelming this year because he did have to play outside corner where he's usually better in the slot. So I feel like other players like Isaac Yiadom didn't meet their end of the stick, and I feel like Justin Simmons definitely deserved to be on this list.
Yeah, as I said, he's a top 5 safety, and he was definitely better than all some of those defensive backs mentioned. And so with that, this is going to end our video on the snubs in the NFL Top 100 list. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching the video.